You won't believe what happened when I built a simple dock at my lake cabin. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend getaway spot, a place to relax, fish, and enjoy nature. But instead, it turned into a full-blown neighborhood drama that I never saw coming. Out of nowhere, this HOA, Karen, you know the type, decides to call 911. Yes, 911. Just because I put up a dock. It sounds crazy, right? But wait, here's the twist. I actually have the authority to issue state fishing permits. That means what I built was totally legal, fully approved, and in line with all the local rules. Yet, somehow, that didn't stop her from trying to stir up trouble. From the moment I started working on the dock, tensions with the HOA began to rise. They claimed I was breaking some mysterious rule, even though I double-checked every regulation before putting a single plank down. The lake cabin community is usually calm, but this time, things got heated fast, and the person at the center of it all, that persistent HOA Karen, who seemed determined to make my life difficult. She didn't just send passive-aggressive notes, she went straight for the nuclear option, dialing 911 as if I was some kind of emergency. What makes this story even more interesting is how the powers that be handle situations like this, especially when you're in a position to issue official fishing permits. Does that give me an edge, or is it just adding fuel to the fire? The tension is high, and the community is buzzing with whispers about what's really going on behind the scenes. So what happened after the 911 call? How did I respond? And will this dock ever be accepted by the HOA? Stay tuned, because the next part is where things really get wild and the truth comes out. You don't want to miss this. Before all this chaos, my lake cabin was just a quiet spot I'd been dreaming about for years. I bought the land because I love fishing and wanted a place where friends and family could come together. The lake is beautiful, calm, and perfect for weekend escapes. Building a dock seemed like the natural next step, something to make fishing easier and more enjoyable. I made sure to follow every state guideline, got the necessary permits, and even checked with local officials about the rules. It wasn't just a random project, it was carefully planned and approved. But apparently, the HOA had a different idea. They never made their rules clear to me up front, and suddenly, the moment the dock was in place, all these complaints started pouring in. It wasn't just about the dock itself. There were whispers about property values and community standards, but nothing concrete. The real issue seemed personal. That HOA Karen, who showed up at the community meetings with a list of demands, made it clear she wanted to make an example out of me. Maybe it was jealousy, or maybe she just didn't like anyone stepping out of line. Whatever it was, her calling 911 felt like a direct attack. What's wild is that as someone who issues state fishing permits, I know how serious these regulations are. I've seen plenty of people get in trouble for ignoring them. So I thought my dock would be the last thing anyone would question. But here I was, caught in this weird clash between official rules and neighborhood politics. The more I tried to explain, the more resistance I met. It was like the rules I followed didn't matter to some people. The tension wasn't just between me and the HOA anymore. Other neighbors started picking sides quietly, unsure who was right but clearly watching the drama unfold. The calm lake community I loved was suddenly filled with suspicion and whispers. And the real question started to eat at me. Why was this escalating so quickly? Something deeper was going on, and I had no idea what it was, but I was about to find out. As the days passed, the situation only grew more complicated. The HOA Karen didn't just stop at the 911 call. She started organizing meetings, pushing for stricter enforcement of rules that, until then, no one had really cared about. Some neighbors seemed to quietly support her, while others looked uncomfortable, caught between wanting peace and not wanting to pick sides. It became clear that this wasn't just about a dock anymore. It was about control, about who gets to decide what the community should look like. On one hand, I had the state regulations backing me up. The permits I issued aren't handed out lightly, and I knew my dock was within all legal limits. But on the other hand, the HOA claimed they had their own set of rules, sometimes vague and sometimes contradictory. It felt like I was being squeezed from two directions. What frustrated me most was how quickly assumptions were made without facts. The moment the dock went up, it was labeled a violation, and suddenly I was the problem. Meanwhile, I started hearing little stories from neighbors. Some said they sympathized with me, but were too afraid to speak up. Others whispered that Karen had been involved in other disputes before, always pushing for tighter rules and fines. It seemed like there was a history of tension under the surface, old grudges, unspoken rivalries, and maybe even jealousy over who owned what. Suddenly, the peaceful lake community felt more like a chessboard, with everyone playing their own moves. The deeper I got into this, the more I realized how complicated property rights and community rules can be, especially in places like this, where neighbors are so close. I was caught in the middle of a bigger conflict about fairness, authority, and who really has the final say. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the HOA sent me an official notice that threatened fines and possible removal of the dock if I didn't comply. What that meant for me, my cabin, and my fishing plans was unclear. But one thing was certain: the fight was far from over. The notice from the HOA hit me like a punch to the gut. Fines, removal orders, it all felt so sudden, like the community was ganging up on me overnight. I kept thinking about all the hours I'd spent planning that dock, the late nights making sure every detail met state standards, and now it was all at risk because of neighborhood politics. I tried reaching out to the HOA board, hoping for a calm conversation, but every message went unanswered or was met with vague responses. It was like they were waiting for me to slip up. Then, things took an even stranger turn. The HOA Karen started showing up uninvited near my cabin, asking neighbors if they'd seen anything illegal about my dock, spreading rumors that I had ignored environmental rules. None of it was true, but suddenly, the entire community seemed divided. Some people whispered that I was being reckless, while others quietly told me they felt the HOA was overstepping its bounds. I could feel the weight of every stare when I walked by, the judgment thick in the air at the same time. I received a call from the local fishing authorities, a reminder that issuing fishing permits comes with responsibilities. And now they wanted to double-check everything about my dock and permit status. That call added another layer of pressure. I knew I was following the law, but now it felt like every rule was under a microscope. Every decision questioned. As the days went by, tension mounted. The HOA threatened more fines. Karen warned neighbors that ignoring the rules would harm the entire community's reputation. I was stuck between my rights as a permit issuer and the HOA's escalating demands. Friends began suggesting I consider legal advice, and strangers offered sympathy but no solutions. The calm lake, once a place of peace, had become a battleground. And just when I thought I'd reached the breaking point, something happened that pushed everything over the edge, something that would change the fight completely. What that was, I can't reveal yet. But trust me, the next moments would decide everything. Just when I thought the tension couldn't get any thicker, an unexpected call changed everything. I received a message from the county zoning office. Apparently, there had been a complaint filed against me, not just from the HOA, but from an anonymous neighbor. The complaint claimed my dock was blocking shared lake access, which was news to me. I'd always believed the spot I chose was perfectly legal and didn't interfere with anyone else's property. Now, suddenly, my dock was at the center of a bigger dispute I hadn't even known existed. This new twist sent shockwaves through the whole situation. Suddenly, it wasn't just about HOA rules or fishing permits anymore. There was a question about property lines, public versus private access, and whether I had unknowingly crossed a boundary. The county scheduled a site visit to investigate, and that only added more stress. Neighbors started gathering around, some looking supportive, but others clearly watching to see if I'd be found in the wrong. The quiet community was turning into a courtroom drama. Meanwhile, HOA Karen seemed more energized than ever. She was now spreading rumors that I was trying to monopolize the lakefront and ignoring the community's interests. What made it worse was how quickly some neighbors believed her, even though no one had seen any real proof. It felt like I was fighting against not just rules, but against people's perceptions. And that was harder to handle. The fishing permits I issue, which should have given me credibility, now seemed irrelevant in the face of these new accusations. It was like all my experience and authority were being overshadowed by personal agendas and old resentments, with the county investigation looming, the HOA fines stacking up, and my reputation at risk. I was at a crossroads. Every move I made felt like it could tip the balance one way or another. The peaceful lake cabin retreat I dreamed of was slipping further away, and the real battle was just beginning. The day of the county site visit arrived, and I was nervous but ready. I had all my permits in hand, clear maps showing property lines, and a solid understanding of the state fishing regulations I'd followed to the letter. The county officials walked the area carefully, speaking with neighbors and reviewing every detail of my dock. For hours, I watched as tension hung thick in the air. HOA Karen standing nearby with a smug look, confident she'd win this battle. But then came the surprise. The county officials confirmed my dock was fully compliant with zoning laws and state fishing permit regulations. They found no evidence that I was blocking any public access. In fact, they reminded the HOA that private dock construction was allowed within certain guidelines, and I had followed every single one. The HOA's threats and fines suddenly lost their weight. It felt like justice had finally caught up with the truth. Still, as the county wrapped up and the neighborhood started to settle, I thought this nightmare was over, but that's when the final twist hit. The HOA board, frustrated and embarrassed by the ruling, revealed a secret they'd been hiding all along. The lake itself was facing an environmental review due to new regulations being proposed by the state. This review could impact every dock, boat, and fishing permit in the community, including mine. Suddenly, what seemed like a personal feud was tied to a much bigger issue, one that could change the entire way we all used and enjoyed the lake. The peaceful lake cabin, once a simple dream, had turned into the center of a complicated fight between neighbors, regulations, and environmental concerns. And while I won the battle over my dock, the war for the future of the lake was just beginning. What happens next could affect everyone in this community, including me. After the county cleared my dock and the HOA's threats lost their power, I thought maybe peace would return to the lake community. But with the new environmental review announced, it was clear that this was about more than just one dock or one disagreement. The lake we all loved was facing changes that could impact every property owner, every fisherman, and every visitor. It was a reminder that sometimes even the quietest places hold complex challenges beneath the surface. In the weeks that followed, the community came together in a way I hadn't expected. The fight over my dock had sparked conversations about what kind of future we wanted for this lake, and how we could balance personal freedoms with protecting our environment. Even HOA Karen softened a bit, joining meetings to discuss the review and listen to different viewpoints. It wasn't perfect, but it showed that even the toughest conflicts can open the door to understanding. For me, this whole experience was a lesson in patience and persistence. Knowing the rules and standing by what's right matters, but so does listening and finding common ground, especially when emotions run high. I also realized how important it is to stay informed and involved in local issues, whether it's fishing permits, lake access, or environmental regulations. These things affect all of us, whether we realize it or not. My dock still stands by the lake, a symbol of more than just a fishing spot. It's a reminder of a fight fought fairly, of community voices coming together, and of the care we owe to the places we call home. The road ahead might have more twists, but I'm ready, because sometimes standing your ground means more than winning a single battle. It means being part of something bigger for the good of everyone.